March 28, 2022. Anthony, so great to see you.
Oh boy, the Oscars. We got to talk about it.
Oh no.
I'm Anthony. Welcome to No Vacancy Live. That's my friend Glenn.
You're watching the #1 show in hospitality.
Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning into No Vacancy Live. That, of course, is Anthony Melchiori. I'm Glenn Hausman. This is episode 600 and something. I keep forgetting the numbers. I'm going to guess 7. And then Dr. Producer Suzanne is going to correct me. Oh, she's nodding yes. How awesome is that? I got it right. Anthony, I'm a little worried about this Oscar thing. I told you not to bring it up or else I'm going to have to slap you a little bit. So...
You know, it was one of the wild things. My daughter texted me. I had woken up in the middle of the night, and I was like, "Oh boy, let me look what's going on." And it's just disappointing. You know, my daughter said to me, which kind of shocked me. She goes, "Well, you would do that," and I go, "No, I wouldn't. I would never ever put my hands on anybody unless there were a physical threat to somebody that I loved, or even somebody I didn't love. I would defend them." But I thought it was bad form. I think it's going to be. You know, of all the things Will Smith did in his life, it's going to be, unfortunately, the thing that he's top 3 things he's remembered for. Oh, and by the way, he's only the 5th African-American man to win an Oscar, which was the biggest story. And I told you it was a great movie and he should win the Oscar. Instead of that being the story, it's another kind of aside that just was not necessary. But listen, he defended his wife's honor, and if that was more important than his legacy, then so be it. And then Chris Rock handled it like a man.
Well, what are you going to do, right? He's not going to hit him back. He's hosting, he's on stage at this thing where 1 billion people used to watch. I think the Oscar numbers are down. There's probably 9 people watching these days, but it's a major thing. You don't want to screw something like that up.
Yeah, but you know what? It's I don't know. I would think that I would just take the shot and just keep going like Chris, but you never know. Somebody just punched you in the face.
No, you never know. I'll tell you what, though. You're talking about punches in the face, particularly when it comes to how much you're charging on rooms. You don't want that. What you want to do is visit ideas.com because these guys are going to help you set rates in a real meaningful way with science behind it. Anthony, they've been around for 30 years. You remember like 30, 40 years ago, people would set rates basically seasonally, maybe just take a dart, throw it at a dartboard, and then that would be the rate they set, right?
They would put a rack card out, and they would have 4 rates a year, and you would find it on the international, on the highway system. Right. And then you go, oh, let's call them and let's see what their rates are today. And oh, no, their rates like there for 7 months. And by the way you kind of brought up ideas was like flawless.
Thank you.
It was absolutely flawless.
All right, be sure to check them out. They're going to help you, empower you to make the right decisions when it comes to revenue management. It's all based on science. It's all based on lots of data. And we know we love data around here.
It's not all science. It's a little bit of kind of interpretation.
Right, absolutely. And I guess that's kind of where art and science comes together. You, as a revenue management personnel, you bring that art to it. But Anthony, a couple of stories out in the news that I'm seeing today. And one of them, I know this is not going to surprise you much, but a new study from FilterBuy says that travel spending in New York State declined by 64.2%, $14.2 billion from 2019 to 2020 during the pandemic. So not a big surprise there. Soared down, but it looks like spending's coming back, particularly on the eastern side of the United States.
No disrespect to that company, but a 5-year-old could have given me that number.
All right. But one of the things, Anthony, is last week we were at the Hunter Hotel Investment Conference. Well, at least I was. You were coming in virtually there. And what struck me most was how normal it felt. Not too much like a family reunion, like we've had that feeling with some of these events post-pandemic. Not a feeling of being really sad and depressed, just normal. It felt like any conference from 2019 or before. And it really felt to me that that's the real symbolism of us getting back to business, particularly since I saw so many people talking about deals, hotel valuations, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I'm at a brand conference today speaking to the management company of the brand, the internal management of IHG. And I understand there's a lot of deals that are coming their way, and I look forward to hearing from them and speaking with them. But I feel the same way. Every interaction I'm having recently is a normal interaction, and I had to wear my mask the other day, and I was like, "Where the hell's my mask?" I have one for the airplane, but that's about it. So, hopefully it doesn't tick up. Everybody's saying it's going to tick up, but again, is it even something that we need to put our mask on for, or is just a flu and whoever's sick stays home for a day or two? And you're starting to hear Obama had it, Joe Rogan had it again, Elon Musk. Did I say that right? Elon Musk?
I don't know, but he probably spent $1 billion to buy it.
He has it today. But everybody's saying it's very mild, but hopefully we're back. And if there was any indication of being at the comedy show the other day at Barclay Center for Sebastian, there were, like I said, 3 people in the audience, my wife being one of them, wearing a mask. Everybody else was not wearing the mask.
Wow. Well, not really not too much of a surprise as we move into this year. Now, because of all the action that's been happening out on the road at these particular conferences, we thought we'd take more of a financial tinge today, talk a little bit about what goes in behind the scenes when it comes to asset management, valuations, and all of that stuff to set you up for deal making. And that's why today we got the incredible Evan Weiss, co-founder, COO, principal, LWHA Hospitality Advisors out of New York City. Evan, I can't believe out of all the years we've known each other, I think this is the first time you're on our broadcast.
It's definitely the first time on your broadcast. First of all, thank you guys so much. It's awesome to be here. Not only Glenn, not only is it the first time that I'm on the broadcast, but it had to come through Anthony, who I literally just met like a month ago. So, I mean, it's a little embarrassing. That's all I'm saying for both of us, I think.
All right. Anthony doesn't like when I do this, but this deserves it. Poor me. Sad trombone on me.
Well, first of all, I want to say I had lunch with Evan because of my friend Peter, who's working with Evan now. And I got to tell you something. It was you have a very boring title, and it sounds what you do is boring, but you're actually an interesting fellow.
Oh, thanks so much. I get that a lot, by the way. Yeah, mostly from people that are trying to get something out of me.
No, we had a really nice lunch. The first time we met, and I think we fell in love before the appetizer came, and it was enjoyable. And again, as a reformed asset manager myself, I still go to the meetings every day, and in that world that I was in for just 2 short years, thank God. Not a lot of people had a lot of personality. I'll be honest with you. I mean, some people did, but a lot of people are very accounting and very numbers driven, and just not as funny as you are.
Well, I appreciate that. Whenever anybody calls me funny, I always have a lot of issue with it because then I feel like I'm on the spot. I feel like Chris Rock at the Oscars. Somebody may just slap the hell out of me. Who knows? Yeah,
and you didn't even have. The bad part of that. First of all, it was horrible. And I mean, literally, and I think it's really important that everybody,
right?
It's like not listen, everybody has their own opinion, but like violence is never the answer. But you would think Chris Rock as a comedian would have a better comeback. He had no comeback because he was so shocked.
Well, I think he was trying to pick the cheek out of his teeth. So,
we were talking about it in the green room, and I not to go down this guy. I know Glenn doesn't like when we do this, but when Will Smith hit him, Will Smith was he played Muhammad Ali, so he knows how to throw a punch.
Right.
And I boxed a little bit when I was a kid. When you throw a punch, you throw from your hip, and he threw it from his hip. So Chris Rock moved his face quick enough that it didn't really land, because typically that punch where he landed it will knock you out. So I'm really shocked that he didn't.
Well, it was open-handed, first of all, right? So that's
but open-handed, right there, that'll knock you out just as much as a punch, probably more than a punch.
Now that would have got good ratings.
Full force.
By the way, Glenn, that would have been the 10th person to watch the Oscars, because I agree with you. I heard about it well after the time, because there's no way in hell I would spend my evening watching the Oscars. I'd rather work, run around in circles, or smash my head in the wall.
I hear you. And it's strange because I really, really care about what she wore.
Yes.
And what designer.
You know what's interesting? I did actually watch, because I was in my hotel room and I was having dinner. And as I'm watching it, first of all, I thought it was horrific. I thought it was terrible. I thought the jokes were terrible. I thought it was just bad. It was really, really bad. It seemed like it was 20 years ago, and it was just not good at all. And I was also, to bring up, like, everybody's talking about you being politically correct and sexual harassment, but you had one of the hosts literally physically, like, touching 3 of the, like, A-list actors and, like, filling them up. And I was like, wait, Hollywood is like all about being, politically correct. And you're having a female actress fill up a male actress on national TV, and that was appropriate. So I was offended by that.
Wow.
If I saw it, I'd probably be offended. At this point, my philosophy on celebrities is a very simple one. I just don't care. They're famous because they know how to act. That's about it. Other than you guys, of course. Now, you guys, I care a ton about.
Well,
personally,
we're a different type of celebrity. Or not.
You guys are more real people on the street, which I appreciate. I'm from
and when I said I'm offended, I wasn't offended. It was just like, wait, I thought you guys were the ones setting the standard, but that was okay.
Yeah,
that was okay for a woman to do it to a man. I don't know. I just thought it was a shit show from what I saw. And then, to have Will Smith. And when was the last time you saw them have such access to the stage? I mean, it was a flat platform. He literally walked 10 feet and slapped him in the face.
Well, it happened to be that he was sitting in like row 1, which was somewhat problematic. I imagine next year he'll be in row like 96. So like,
no, but usually there's a stage
in front of him when he's coming down the aisle. There's no time.
There's usually a stage that you have to walk up. There was no stage. It was a flat platform right from his seat. Anyway, Glenn, why don't you take us out of this?
So I really do not care about the Oscars. I do not care about celebrities. I didn't even know who won any of them, but I did just found out that Ariana DeBose won Best Actress, and I had no idea I knew her because I saw Hamilton about 18,000 times on Disney Plus last year. She was in the ensemble on that. So I think she was the one who was really good at pretending she was a bullet and moving her finger across the stage like that a lot. So
a lot of talent
Hamilton on that. That's my pick for this year. But Evan, one of the things that's going on right now is we're seeing a lot of transactions taking place, but not, of course, to the degree that we expected to be happening out there. I think to start us off, exactly what do you do at LW Hospitality Advisors? And then we'll get into some of the bigger issues I think that you're seeing out there.
Absolutely. So before I jump in, by the way, Glenn, I actually disagree with the statement you just made in terms of the transaction volume. So we'll get back to that. We'll throw some numbers around. I'll try to get some data for you. Otherwise, I'll just speak in generalities and try to sound smart, which is what I do every day.
Hey, Glenn, now that Glenn, he disrespected you by disagreeing with you. Do I have to slap him?
I got it. This, by the way, this is why Zoom has become so popular, because of physical violence. Just saying. Physical violence in the studio.
Hey, Anthony, you're right. He is funny.
I'm trying, guys. I'm trying. What do I do here? So it's actually an age-old question. Other than continue to add titles to my name. So myself and my partner, Dan Lesser, co-founded LWHA about 11 years ago, January of 2011. It was just the two of us in some really, really crappy Regis space. Not that Regis is crappy, but it was crappy Regis space. And at 11 Penn Plaza. And today we're about 40 folks throughout the country. Our firm essentially is kind of 3 platforms in one. We're like a real estate services firm to focus exclusively and solely on the hospitality and gaming spaces. So vertical 1 is valuation, appraisals, feasibility studies, market studies, litigation, sport expert testimony. Vertical 2 is third-party asset management. We do a lot of consulting, advisory, due diligence, underwriting, help folks find brands, management companies, really bridge the gap between folks that know and understand real estate, know and understand construction, development, or a geography, right, and really need some assistance. It's slotting in the hotel component. That's where we come in. We kind of become that bridge, if you will. Then the third component of what we do is a brand new platform, about 2 years old. Third partner of ours joined us in January of 2020, created a platform called LARC, Lodging Analytics Research and Consulting. Our partner there is Ryan Melliker for Dan and I. And it's probably the foremost prognostication tool in the hotel world today, most sophisticated, most accurate, highest level of forecast accuracy for things like average rate, occupancy, EBITDA, top 25 markets plus about 20 markets. So what do? I do a little bit of everything. Jack of all trades, master of none. I do a lot of valuation review. I do a lot of client meetings, client management, if you will, relationship management. I handle a lot of our operations, whether it's technology or I don't do any of it, of course, because I barely know how to turn my computer on. But I know the right people that do. Everything from, sort of the upside to, of course, having conversations all day, every day, just being a hotel expert, really trying to understand the space, where it's going, trying to think strategically, both about our company, its growth, as well as the industry and its trajectory right now, given how complicated it is. So that's a little bit about LWHA and my role within it.
Yeah, and if I can wrap up kind of what he does, if you say you're a person that's in a different business and you have a lot of money and you want to open up, say, I don't know, a big box in Boston or New York or LA or one of the 25 markets, you would call him first. If you don't call him first, even before you call your banker, you got a problem. That's the company that really kind of brings it all together. And this industry is pretty simple to guys that have been doing it or girls have been doing it for a long time, but it's pretty complicated when you really think of all the things that you need to align. It's like, I always say, it's like building a building, right? You see this beautiful building, but you didn't see the big hole in the ground that you had to dig and that you had to put piping in, you had to put concrete in, you had to put the foundation in before you build this big, you know, incredible hotel. That's kind of what they do. They make sure that the foundation is solid before you really kind of take off and get into the hotel business.
Yeah, thank you, Anthony. I couldn't have said it better myself. In fact, I didn't. I think, you know, and put very simply, we really, you know, we say we're great for folks that are new to the hotel space. But by the way, we cover every market in all 50 states, Canada, Puerto Rico, Caribbean, Mexico. We've done work in all those municipalities over the last 11 plus years. We've got 40 phenomenal human beings that work with us, both on the admin side as well as in valuation, asset management, and on the data analytics. I mean, literally, you know, we say it all the time and we kind of BS about it a lot, but without the people that we have here, we wouldn't be a fraction of the size that we are today. They are really the ones who make us look smart. And thank God for that, because, you know, I need it.
Well, you're too busy looking sexy, so I understand why you don't
Listen, this jacket, actually, I'm not wearing any pants, but I would not stand up for the sake of your viewers.
Hey, pants is so 2000.
Oh my gosh, he literally is literally not wearing pants. That's phenomenal. You can't make this up.
So
live podcast.
I've never done that before, but I felt like it was necessary. I am wearing
Make sure you tune into the video feed at 16 minutes and 53 seconds.
Exactly.
Sexy legs.
You know, if I can ask a question, what's the #1 mistake that new hotel people that want to come into the hotel business? I wouldn't even say new hotel owners, but people that want to come in to the hotel business. What's the #1 mistake that they make?
Calling another firm that does what we do. That's A, right? And obviously. And they'll remain nameless unless you guys want me to go there, because I don't really care. No.
I didn't even know there were any other firms. That's how I'm approaching this.
Glenn Hart. So I'd say the #1 mistake is that they don't know what they don't know. You know, in our space, it's funny. You guys both mentioned concepts when you were kind of going back and forth. You mentioned art and science. You know, we say that a lot about the valuation, even the asset management side of the world. The Lark side is purely quantitative, purely data. But on the other side, you know, it really is a combination of art and science. In hotels, as you guys well know, but folks that are not in the space know, it's the complication of bricks and mortar real estate, but it's intertwined with a 24/7, 365 operating business. And if you think you understand real estate and development and geography and demand structures and all that, that's great. And if you think you understand the hotel business, but you're going to ignore the reality that you are in fact in the real estate business, right? And taxes matter, and zoning matters, and location matters, and access and visibility, all that matters. You know, that's where you fall into the you know, sort of into the hole. And so the most important thing is really knowing what you don't know, and knowing the right team and the right folks, really, with kidding aside, to take you through the process of finding a brand, finding a manager. Should we be a full service Marriott? Should we be a soft brand? Should we be a 3-star? Should we be a 5-star? I often give the example, you know, I always tell people, I'm like, what's the best hotel for, I'm from Staten Island.
Right.
I know I don't sound like it.
Sorry to hear about that.
I don't slur my R's, but and I love my Staten Island people. But you know, I always tell people, what's the best hotel for Staten Island? And like, they're like, the best hotel, obviously that's a 4 Seasons. I'm like, well, I disagree because
who's going to stay to 4 Seasons in Staten Island?
Well, but that's
Staten Island.
But that's the point, right? That's the point. The point is that the best hotel is indicated by the location itself and what sort of the ceiling or the floor on rates and occupancy would be, right? So if you built a Hilton Garden Inn like they did,
I was about to say, I think that Hilton Garden Inn with that event space up top
crushed it. Yeah. They crushed it. They crushed it. The second they opened up that building, I said they're going to crush it, and they crushed it. They extended it. Yeah, they crushed it.
So it's an interesting sort of case study. Back then, the owners, Rich and Akotra and the Akotra family, who own a lot of property on South Avenue in Staten Island, where that property is, you know, they were, I think they were on the fence about whether to do an event space, and they were also I would imagine that, I don't know this as a fact, but imagine they would have wanted a full service Hilton. But back then, there's probably no way that Hilton would have gone there.
Right.
So they got an HGI, they got a Hilton Garden Inn.
For those of you who don't really know, it's quasi full service. It's close, but not.
We like to call it select, but that property is actually not select. That property has a full 3-meal restaurant. Right. They have 15,000 square feet of it. I think, well, actually, at this point, probably close to 25,000 square feet of event space. And so they built the best product for that time, and then expanded and added the right capabilities to it. So again, it's really about understanding your location, right? Because Glenn, right away, you're like, Four Seasons on Staten Island, but somebody else may say, oh, well, this definitely can handle a full service or a luxury hotel. But in reality, that's not the best asset for that particular location or that particular, demand structure. So it depends.
So one of the things that you do is not only for new properties, you come in and you could probably say, hey, if you're going to be changing flags based on a required PIP and this, that, and the other thing, this is the brand that you should go to. And I love that whole notion that you operate with the, you don't know what you don't know, because that's like my whole life here. Right. And it makes me highly inquisitive, but you probably get a full panoply of clients over there. The ones that think they know everything to all the way to the ones that are like, I know nothing, you tell me what to do, right?
Absolutely. I mean, we on a daily basis, we deal with folks that actually do know way more than we do. We'll do a market study or feasibility for them. Maybe it's required by a lender. Maybe they are just kind of overstaffed. Right now we're bidding on a due diligence assignment, to do programmatic due diligence for a company that has built over 50, 75 hotels and owns about 100, 120 hotels, has their own management company. They know more about hotels than we do, or as much for sure. But they just need sort of someone to help slot in and assist them during a time where they can't find the right personnel, which is a whole labor issue, which we could talk about as well.
And talk about, like, people don't realize the reason their brands have grown so much in the last 20 years. Not only they've gotten better at standards, but banks have demanded that owners have a brand for a big percentage of hotels, especially new hotel owners. So talk about that. Like, why is that such a big deal?
Before you do, Evan, let me just say the questions are coming in, guys, out there. We will answer your questions shortly. Evan, take it away.
Sure. So brands are a really interesting thing. First of all, so at our firm and at a lot of firms, we joke that, oh my gosh, there are totally not enough brands. Marriott only has 30 of them, and Hilton's only got 18, 20 of them, and Hyatt as well, and every day you see Wyndham add an extended stay economy brand, and everybody right at the Hunter Hotel Conference where Glenn and I were last week in Atlanta. So the whole thing about brands is very interesting. So let's take a step back for a moment. Let's remember something. At their core, Hilton, Marriott, Hyatt, IHG, maybe Hyatt a little bit less, but IHG, Wyndham, Choice, what are they? They're hotel companies, yes, but essentially they're branding and management and marketing companies, right? They're all about very much focused on unit growth, obviously maintaining quality, but quantity is a big thing to them. And so they're really branding and management companies. So they've created this aura to be able to be something for everybody, right? You want a big full service Marriott with 1,000 rooms and 200,000 square feet of convention space. Boom, you go be a Marriott. You go be a Marriott Marquis, Marriott Grand Marquis, whatever the hell it is. You want to be a Hilton Signia, which nobody knows what that is. Sorry, Hilton, I love you guys, but nobody knows what a Signia is. So that's on that side. The other part of it is that, like, let's say, Anthony and Glenn are two super smart hotel guys, and they're like, hey, we want to do a brand, but you know what? To your point earlier, Anthony, nobody would give you a brand. Nobody would give you financing. They would say, yeah, these guys are phenomenal hotel guys, as Glenn just, chimed in, but they don't know anything about development. And we're not sure they really understand branding. Anthony's not wearing pants. I don't know if we want to give this guy a loan. So what do we do? So they'll say, okay, you know what? If you have a soft brand behind this cool concept that you want to do, soft brands being, Marriott's Autograph, Hilton's Curio, Hyatt's Unbound. Yeah, exactly. Choices Ascend, Wyndham's
Tapestry, and trademark. Tapestry. I'm just throwing out more.
Yeah, exactly. Tapestry, Tribute, et cetera, right? And the crazy thing is that in the soft brand world, even that's become striated, even that's become segmented, right? Yes. You've got Luxury Collection as Marriott's 5-star, Autograph as their quote unquote 4-star, Tribute as their 3, and the same thing in Hilton. You've got LXR, you've got Curio, and now you've got Tapestry, and the other brands are obviously developing along those lines as well. And in IHG, we've seen Voco, we've seen Vignette, right? So we're seeing all these different segmentation even within the soft brand space, which is really interesting. So the point is that the brands are trying to be something for everybody so they can capture your fees, right? Which is very intelligent, a great business model. And on the financing side, a lot of times some lenders are, and I will name none of them, some lenders are super smart on hotels, and they know in, let's say, in New York or in LA or Miami, you really don't need a brand in order to really gain maximum rental penetration. However, when you're in, a secondary or tertiary market, call it Lexington, Kentucky, which is a great market, maybe the brand says, you know what, if you want to build a hotel there, the lender will say, you know what, A, we may not be as savvy on hotels, or B, we are savvy on hotels and we know in this market need a brand. So if you're going to build that limited select service hotel, we'd rather not be the Glen Anthony. That's a good name, by the way. I trademarked.
I like that. Yeah.
The Glen Anthony, or the Anthony Glen. Sorry, Anthony. I didn't mean to put you second there. There we want you to put that Hilton, Marriott, Hyatt, IHG, et cetera, flag on that property so that we know that there's a level of standard, both on the construction as well as on the operational side, that we can now lend behind. Right. And then, of course, they'll probably also require you to have a professional third-party management company. And that's something also within the hotel space people don't understand. Folks that are not in the hotel world, I often ask them, how many Marriott hotels are there? They're always like, I don't know. I said 8,000. They're like, wow, 8,000. I'm like, how many are owned by Marriott? Invariably, the answer comes back, I don't know, 8,000, 7,500. I say no, 0 or 5 or something, depending on the day, right? Literally, it's sub 10. And most of those are to build brands like the W Union Square or something like that, right? Yep. And then I say, okay, well, then obviously I go, how many do you think Marriott manages? They're like, oh yeah, I mean, like at least 5,000-6,000 of them. I'm like, yeah, probably like 500-600 of them or something thereabouts. Certainly sub 1,000. They're like, well, what are they? I'm like, they're license agreements. So when you have a hotel, you've got ownership, in many cases a separate third-party manager, and in many cases a separate franchise or brand or flag organization. Yep. And then, as you guys know from the worlds we come from, on the sales and marketing side, there's even further sort of soft brands, if you will, preferred, leading, small luxury hotels, LWHA, all these different kinds of companies that are sales and marketing representation, but also somewhat branded type entities these days where, especially not to get too granular, but on the booking side, their GDS codes go through those brands. So there's so much complication to it. I tell people all the time, they're like, oh, wow, this sounds really complex. And part of my job is to make the hotel business sound as complex as friggin' possible so that when you have an issue, you got to call me because you can't possibly figure it out yourself. You've got to be a Mensa member or, one of us three Jamoos.
You certainly can. And I was going to join Mensa, but they said, Glenn, you're too smart for us. We can't handle it. So I did not do that. So what do you think about a management company in general based upon what you're saying?
I think that they're fantastic. I mean, right now in the United States, there's, I don't even know the number, well over 100 third-party management companies. There's a lot of companies out, a lot of hotel-specific management companies that are pure third-party. Some are owner-managers purely, and some are owner-managers and third-party. And of course, there's the brand managers, right? Meaning Marriott, Hilton, Hyatt, IHG, they all do their own management. Typically hotels that are, well, let's call it, for lack of better terminology, and I don't like to get too much into the star rating system, but that are, I call upper upscale or higher, are typically, or certainly luxury and higher, are required to be managed by the brand. For instance, 99.99% of all Four Seasons, Ritz-Carlton, St. Regis's, Intercontinental hotels, most of those hotels are managed by the brand, by the actual brand company. That's what they're good at, especially larger box hotels. Think convention center hotels like Fairmont or Marriott or Westin or Signia or Marriott Marquis. Those are by and large, not solely, but by and large managed by the brand. So you have that sort of brand managed. Then you have, again, the owner operated. Again, I don't want to mention companies. I don't want to exclude anyone. Yeah. And then you have folks that just purely third party manage. So I think management companies, quite frankly, unless you're from the hotel space and been doing it for dozens of years, and on top of the experience, have the wherewithal, the ability, both financial and sort of, brain power wise, to bring on all the resources that you need to have a successful company. Say you have 5 hotels and you've been in the business for 25 years. It may make sense to have your own management company. It may not. If you need a VP of F&B, depends on the type of hotels. You need a VP of F&B, of HR, of housekeeping, of rooms, of revenue management, all this stuff. There's so many different nuances and specialties that's why a lot of folks just go to, even if they own 10, 15 hotels, they go to a third-party management company and they say, hey, you do it better. You have 1,000 hotels. You have the infrastructure. Also, you have the group purchasing. You have the buying power for toilet paper, for linens, light bulbs, etc. that I want. I think it's actually more economical for me to say, hey, I've got 10 hotels. Let me negotiate a better fee deal with you, or maybe a revenue share deal, whatever it may be, rather than starting my own company, because it could be a couple of $1 million in salaries, and the profit has to be there from taking out the management entity. So.
Yeah, and Chris, Chris is of course the CEO of Chesapeake Hospitality that Daniel was mentioning in the comment section. But Evan, we're seeing more commonly, at least my understanding is the relationship between management and owners is becoming closer. I'm seeing more and more deals that go through where the management company has to put up some sort of money as a psychological buy-in that they're going to be doing the best job as possible. Is that kind of what you're seeing out there?
You know, it's an interesting question. We definitely see it from the brands, you know, in the form of key money. And from management companies, we typically see it less so as key money, more so as key money, but really in the form of like a partnership, like a GP partnership. I don't know if I should say this, but I think I'm going to anyway. Oftentimes, you know, we hear from outside the industry, from non-hotel folks, you know, whether they're in multi or industrial, they're like, hey, we want the manager's skin in the game. We want them to, let's say it's a $5 million or it's a $20 million equity investment. We want to put $1 million, and now we know they'll be fully focused on our property, pay the most attention. And I often tell them, hey, why don't you take a step back for a moment? What's your annual revenue? Let's say it's $10 million, right? Okay, what's the management fee that you're going to work out? 3%, let's say, inclusive of incentive management. Okay, I go, okay, how much is your management company making per year? Forget about their profitability, just in revenue. How much is the management company making in revenue? So the answer is $300,000. I'm like, so let me get this straight. They're going to invest $1 million with you. They're going to sign a 10 or a 15-year lock deal because they invested $1 million with you, as opposed to maybe a 3 or 5 year deal, or having a management deal that has more outs, whether it's termination clauses or performance hurdles, etc. And after 3 years, they have their money out, and they still own part of the deal. And you can't really get rid of them because you're like, hey, you want my money? No problem. I'll give you my money, says the management company. But I'm also going to make sure that that I am now locked into this deal for 10 or 15 years. Right. And by the way, those termination clauses that were at 85% of RevPAR penetration, or 95% of RevPAR penetration, I'm going to move them down to 80. You want my money? It's yours. So I look at that capital in two ways. Number one, it's probably the most expensive in your capital stack. Right. Yeah. And number two, it actually ties that management company in with you. Now,
and hold on one second, just for people that don't know, when he refers to capital stack, that means all the different sources that you get your money from in order to buy or build a property. Please continue, Evan.
Yeah. No, so I think that was the point, right? And I'm not saying it's bad to take that money. I'm not saying it's bad to partner with management companies.
Different philosophy.
You just have to understand what you're doing. A, do you really need and want the money? And B, does it really align your interests? Yes or no? That's really the biggest question. What you're looking for is alignment of interest, right? The question is, are your interests more aligned with them having an agreement that you can terminate after 3 or 4 or 5 years with a 90-day notice, or where they're working for their bread every day, which, by the way, is how we work on the asset management side. We have a small fixed component where we're locked in. I mean, we're talking sub 6 months typically. And after that, we work for our bread. You can terminate us in 30 days for the most part. Right. Not to give us a commercial for ourselves, but why do we do that? Do that because if you're not happy, we have no desire to get into a contractual dispute. It's like, hey, you're not happy? Go the other way. It's not a big deal. We're going to work every day to make you happy. And how do I know that? Because if you don't like us, you can show us the door and make sure it doesn't hit us in the ass on the way out. So
interesting. Anthony?
And we have the same feeling in our company. If I get into a contract with you, you have a 30-day out. You don't want us. We don't want you. We're out. So I think that it just makes me work harder because I know we have to prove ourselves all the time. Number one. Number two, tomorrow we're going to do a remedial podcast to explain to the audience everything you just said.
Sorry.
Okay.
I apologize.
No, listen, for me, I was just like, it's just great that after 30 years, I can actually stay up with you, everything you said. But I would imagine if I was a young manager, I'd be like, what the hell did he just say?
Yeah, if we missed anything out there, just drop a note in the comment box and we'll try to.
The good thing is they speak very slowly, so I'm sure they get it through that. Yeah.
Yeah, you speak faster than
they can. Yeah.
You speak faster than me, which is fantastic.
I got to try to get a word in between you guys. I mean, geez.
Hey, what are you talking about?
I think 90% of the conversation's been you, which is fantastic. That's why we do this show.
I know this is quite must have been Anthony ever, and we're loving it.
I think what's really kind of, if I can kind of break it down for everyone, the most difficult thing to do in our industry is be a management company when you're not the owner, you're not obviously involved with the brand, and you're just a third-party management company, because the owner and the brand has one ass to kick, and that is the management company. They're dealing with the call-outs. They're dealing with all the problems. They're dealing with all the issues in the village, in the town. they have the hardest job. And that's one of the reasons I stayed out of the management company business and stayed more in the consulting revenue management business, because it's a very, very difficult business. It is. And like you said, the fees aren't 20%. The fees are 3%. So if a management company makes $300,000 off of one hotel, how many hotels they have to do? Because they have expenses and taxes to pay off of that $300,000. So then they got to build in other incentives, and then they got to meet that incentive. And we all saw what happened during COVID. When COVID hit, all the brands laid off everybody, and they survived. And a lot of management companies either lost everything or got absorbed by another management company that was bigger. So if you want to get into the management company business, I think personally it's the hardest business in our industry.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I don't envy those folks. The folks that we know in the management world are extremely intelligent, extremely sophisticated, both in the owner-manager world and in the third-party manager world. And in the third-party manager world, quite frankly, it's probably one of the toughest jobs out there because there's so many options. There's the 1,000 hotel management companies, 1,500 hotel management companies. And then there's the folks that are 40, 50. And then there's the folks that are focused on Columbia, South Carolina, or Wilmington, North Carolina, or whatever it may be, that now you're competing with, the mega folks. I'll name Aimbridge, Highgate, folks that have 500 to 1,500, hotels. And then now you're competing with the folks that have 40 hotels, but you know what? They may be better at your location.
But it's so funny because they're almost a brand themselves. I mean, they obviously are a brand, but they're like, okay, I have this Marriott, but I have Highgate, or I have Aimbridge, or I have, name a brand. And they're like, wow, okay, we're good because we know they're good management companies.
Well, they become part of the credibility process, right? To your point earlier about brands, I think Glenn asked a question, why have a brand? So why have one of these mega management companies, or why have any third-party management company? And in addition to obviously the day-to-day and the complexity of running a hotel, and to Anthony's point, hey, the last thing anybody who owns 5 or 6 hotels wants is to get woken up at 3 in the morning because their general manager's sick and there's only 7 other employees that are on at the same time. And now you've got to figure that out, right? Nobody wants that call. But the third-party managers or the management companies are paid to get that call. And today, and we can talk about this later in the show here, but labor has become a bigger issue than at any time in my 20-year career.
Yeah, we've been talking about labor a whole lot. And Evan, I'd rather use your brain for some other stuff. The question I have for you in terms of management companies is, my hunch is there's been some consolidation. I think we're going to see a lot more consolidation moving forward. I wouldn't be surprised if we get a word of another deal within the next week or so. How do you think that's going to change the way that management companies are? Are banks going to wake up and say, okay, you can have the 4 major brands on your thing, but now we're also thinking about these management companies you should be working with as well. Or if you have this management company, we're not as worried about his brand, that sort of thing.
That is a great question, actually. So I would say that with your first point, I do agree. I think there'll be more consolidation. We saw Benchmark Pyramid. We've seen Hotel Equities be pretty active in terms of acquiring and or affiliating with some folks. So to your point about the lenders, I don't think so. I'm not sure. Of course, this is just my gut. I don't think so, because as opposed to on the brand side, and the brand side, there's however many, 6, 8 mega brand companies, right? We've mentioned a lot of their names today. Obviously there's, probably 100 brands out there, 100 brand families. Forget about the fact that, Marriott's got 30 and Hyatt's got 10 and, Hilton's got 18 or 20 or whatever that number is, right? I think there's probably another 50 to over 100 other brands, or have 1 or 2 or 3 or 5 hotels, right? We all know those hotel companies that have one call themselves a brand, which is pretty awesome. Not true, but awesome nonetheless. So, I think that the branding side is one thing. And I think that on the management company side, I don't believe that, because in the management company side is interesting. There are folks out there, like I heard of a management company just last year who I had never heard of before. Again, being in this industry 20 years, we do something between 1,000 and 1,500 appraisals, market and feasibility studies a year. We see a lot. We do work in like secondary, tertiary, and quadriary markets. That's 4 for you, Anthony.
Quadriary. Ooh. Yeah, I didn't even hear that one before.
Yeah,
that's a new word for rural.
Exactly. Rural. Yeah. But rural is a tough word to say. So it's hard to.
Especially for a Staten Islander. Yeah.
Exactly. By the way, no joke. I think Anthony got insulted.
He's offended.
He's like, go F yourself, Evan.
Probably internet problems wherever he's staying. He'll be back. Go on, Evan.
Hopefully it's whatever brand it is, to get their thing going. But the point is that there are a lot of companies out there with 50, 100 plus. My point in saying that story is that I never heard of them, but they manage 60 hotels.
Right.
And if I've never heard of them, they manage 60. I mean, 60 is a lot of hotels. That's
a
a bona fide, legit, real company that probably has, 20, 30 people in corporate, plus on the ground, plus regionals. So I think that there are enough companies of size, of 20, 30, 40 plus, and there's actually a fairly decent amount of companies with over 100 properties on the third party management side that I believe that that the lenders won't delve that deeply into it, because again, even a lot of owner managers tend to do a great job. I think they're more concerned with the booking, with the demand side of things, right? They're not as concerned with the efficiency of the operation because they believe that any decent management company can do a good job, which kind of happens to be somewhat true. Of course, there's nuances here and there, but I don't think they'll go there. That makes a whole
lot of sense to me as well. Really good explanation. Kyle is asking, Sheraton Times Square sold for half of what it was bought for in 2005. What do you think about that transaction? And then maybe add your thoughts on, was it the Mandarin Oriental that also sold for really cheap on the Upper West Side in New York City, and some other things that you've been seeing out there?
So we have a policy not to discuss specific companies, specific deals, specific people. Also that's just reputationally on the other side of it. And I happen to know a decent amount about that deal, but to be totally candid, I'm sure there's plenty of details on the deal that I don't know. So I'm going to take a step back from that deal. And you mentioned the Mandarin. There's been a number of other transactions in New York that have sold at pricing that's roughly 50% off. The DoubleTree on Lex sold for sub 200,000 a key. The Wagner downtown has been in a fair bit of trouble and in the news over the last couple of years, which used to be the Ritz-Carlton downtown financial district. And there are a number of other hotels that have sold at pretty significantly low numbers.
And however, that's all New York City-based properties. We were expecting what we're talking about now to be the rule right after COVID started, not kind of more of the exception. So
that's absolutely fair. In fact, the interesting thing about the sales transactional side is that, by and large, we are of the opinion that, 2019, call that the benchmark year, whether it's appropriate or not, but on a macro level, right? 2009 being the benchmark year, that EBITDAs will probably not be back to 2019 levels for the next 12 to 18 months or so, depending upon the market. Yes, some exceed them already. Yes, some are not going to be back until 24 months. Yes, but generally speaking, sometime within the next year or so. But hotel values, by and large, are at or exceeding 2019 levels, and that we can go into that. We can go into that for a whole slew of reasons. By the way, that's both on a volume quantity as well as on a qualitative price per key perspective. We've had more sales at 2 million and 1 million per key in the United States in the last 12, 18 months than we've had in any other period of that size in time in the history of this country. There have been more $1 million per key sales. I think there's been 5 or 7 million plus per key sales in just the last 12 months, as opposed to like 10 to 15 in the history of the United States. Think about that for a second. And we've had 2 or 3 $2 million per key sales in just the last 12 months. And prior to that, I think we had 1. So 3x the amount. So the transactional market, for a variety of reasons, is far exceeding the recovery of the actual EBITDA, right? Not that EBITDA isn't recovering, but just much slower than the investment side of the business.
So just so people understand, that's earnings before
interest,
income,
taxes,
interest, taxes. Right. Cool.
Call it NOI, call it net operating income, call it net income, whatever. Yeah, the more simplistic. I'm sorry. And back to your original question, which was. Yes,
going forward and stuff like that.
Yeah. So it's interesting. There are several reasons why many of these transactions are taking place at significantly low prices per key. And
could I take a guess and then you'll correct me? I think some of them, they were probably bought for too much money to begin with unfavorable terms to the lender. And then those were unable to sustain maybe bank payments and stuff like that. Whereas other people might have gotten a better deal when they purchased or built the property, might have been able to float it a little wrong. How accurate to not accurate is that?
I would say that that's partially accurate in some cases.
In some cases. Again, it's hard. We're trying to draw generalizations when everything that we're talking about is highly specific to individual properties, cities, street corners, etc.
I would say, I'm trying to be somewhat politically correct here, which is hard for me. I would say that if you look at the transactions in New York over the last several months and over the last, call it 1 to 2 years, Anthony, you back?
Yeah.
I'm not back.
Okay.
That's too bad.
I'm getting some feedback here.
We're talking about, Anthony, we're talking about transactions now.
Okay.
Please continue.
Are you still getting feedback from me?
No, better.
Yeah. Everything's fine. Evan, please continue.
Yeah. So I would say if you look at the transactions in a place like New York and a lot of markets throughout the country,
right.
There's a dichotomy. There are some that are trading at slightly below or even above, even in New York City, pre-COVID trends on pricing, and some that are trading significantly lower. Many of those that is traded significantly lower are due partially to the asset itself, potentially the capital expenditure, the renovation requirements. That
Sheraton is a much older building.
Yeah.
Therefore, a lot more money will have to bring it up to snuff to meet whatever property improvement plans are required.
There's also a dichotomy in terms of labor. And I don't want to go too far into it because I like my house. But, you know, in terms of the labor side, most of the transactions that have sold at much lower prices per key have a higher labor cost. Let's just say it like that. And that labor cost makes it much more challenging to get back to profitability. And that has affected the pricing of those types of assets quite significantly. And there is a feeling amongst many that either many of those hotels will no longer be hotels in the future, or they'll be shrunken down, or they'll have to figure out a way to operate more efficiently from a labor perspective in order for them to make money again. Because many of them that you're seeing trade at those lower prices per key, or, you know, call it half of what they were pre-COVID or valued pre-COVID, they weren't making a whole lot of money or any money prior to COVID. So COVID just exacerbated the fact that either A, they've been closed for a long time, B, they've been open and losing even more money. You're also seeing a lot of the properties that are going back to the lender or trading at much lower prices per key are leaseholds. Because during the pandemic, not only did you have to pay your taxes, your insurance, your severance, your whatever it may be on the labor side, but you also, and whatever other, you know, sort of maintenance of the building, you make sure it stays intact as a piece of real estate. But if you had a leasehold sort of payment or you know, requirement on top of that, it made the whole deal that much more untenable because your revenues went to zero. So a lot of those assets, especially if they have a higher labor cost, either A, they'll convert from hotel to other use if it's feasible and if it's the highest and best use of that property, or B, they'll be sold at much lower prices per key, as we saw with one recent deal in Midtown, not the Sheraton, sold at a much lower value per key than to construct it. I mean, you were talking about assets that are selling at, you know, somewhere between 100 and 300,000 a key that would probably cost somewhere between 700,000 and $1 million per key to construct. So it's a really interesting time.
I got a call from a friend of mine that owns a management company, and they said, "Hey, can I just borrow your brain for a second?" I said, "Yeah." So I want your opinion on the deal. So it was a New York City property, and they gave me the deal, and they gave me the price, and I was like, "It's a union property," and they're like, "No, it's not." I was like, "No, it is," and they go like, "No, it's not." We were told it's not a union property. I said, "Call them again, and ask them that question specifically, and then call me back." And they called me back and said, "Yeah, we're not going to buy it because it's union property." Okay, because there's no way that price for that hotel in that area was that number unless there was a very big obstacle to labor. And that hotel, I think you know the hotel, there's actually two of them. I think the hotel, you know the hotels I'm talking about, those hotels may be on the market for a while.
Yeah. There was one hotel that sold in Midtown. Of course, I will not name it. That the brokers asked me, what do I think it's worth? And I told them zero. And the reason I told them zero, well, the reason I told them zero, even though it had been recently renovated, had a $40–50 million renovation, had a really good brand, that was in great condition, in a good location, was because it had a higher labor cost. Anthony used the word union. I'm using the words higher labor cost. Note that to all those listening. So you know, it had a higher labor cost, and on top of that, it had a leasehold for several $1 million a year. And I said, the only way this deal makes sense and it's worth anything is if leasing of, let's call it retail or office space or other parts of the building for another use, leasing that other space could offset the leasehold and for at least 10 years, then the building is worth whatever it's worth, 100, 150,000.
Yeah, if you're, when I was there, first of all, I want to say, I truly think housekeepers in New York City that are in union deserve every penny they're getting. And so I'm a big union supporter. However, we're talking about economics, right? You take the hotel, the Westin Hotel in Times Square. to your point, the billboards on that side of that hotel are probably worth more than the revenue coming into that hotel. So there's a lot of different ways in New York City to skin the cat, as they say. So it's a difficult, and that's why you exist, right? That's why your company exists. It's very complicated. When you say to me, when you said, well, what is it worth? And you said 0, that makes perfect sense to me. You know, why did the Mandarin Oriental just sell for $350 million? Right? That hotel, was it 300?
Yeah, we briefly mentioned that while you were trying to get back.
Okay, right.
Yeah, I mean, it was difficult to see exactly what that transaction sold for, because it sold for an assumption of debt as well as some cash, right? So it was reported somewhat incorrectly in many of the trades out there, but overall, it's definitely a discount where it would have sold, call it 3 or 4 years ago. It probably would have sold almost double per key. And if it didn't have a higher labor cost today, it probably would have also sold literally at somewhere between a 1.5 and 2x of what it did transact for.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Fascinating. All right. So we're starting to run really low on time, Evan. This hour is flying by. And obviously, Anthony, we've got to get him back on soon. So I'm curious as to one of the things that you're seeing in the market right now that you find particularly surprising or interesting or unexpected.
So, it's interesting. I don't know if it's right now. So when the whole thing started, I kind of spent my days just calling people, from like March through almost May. I just spent all day walking around my neighborhood on my phone with a charger, just talking to people about what they thought. What are you thinking? How are you feeling? They're like, Evan, we have no business for you. I'm like, well, of course, no shit. You have no business for us. You're not transacting. You're not selling. You're not financing. Everybody's frozen. But how are you feeling? What are you thinking? And we spoke, and myself and my partners, we spoke to owners, operators, brands, management companies, other valuation folks, other asset managers, you name it. We spoke to them.
Well, we did the same thing. We just did it on our podcast.
Well, you guys did it to make money. I was doing it to make money.
We did not do it to make money. We did honestly, any money we made off of this podcast, okay, and it's not what anybody thinks it is. The reason we did the podcast, I'm glad you said that. Not to interrupt you, but I think, and I think I speak for Glenn. We did this for one reason, 2 reasons. One, to save our brains, because we didn't know what to do with ourselves. And we were already doing our podcast, but we weren't doing it live and we weren't doing it on video. And number 2, it was to give everybody from the CEOs of the brands to, the housekeeper, a place to come and hang out and be in the neighborhood with us. So 0 reason was financial.
Right. I mean, to you guys, maybe a few $1,000,000 a year is not a lot of money, but to all the rest of us, it's inclusive. I'm just saying. And it's not as what you think. All right, fine.
Well, we wish. That being said, feel free to donate to our Patreon or hire us for some speaking engagement. Yeah.
We should do behind the paywall. Maybe we'll make some money off this thing.
I know. We should.
Let's do this. Guys, I want in. Just saying. I want just a little bit of a vig. All right? That's it. One of the things right. So as I was saying, we talked to all these people. And one of the things I kind of thought early on, based on a lot of these conversations, was that very different than other economic downturns / recoveries. And obviously this one is so different. It wasn't financially based. It was obviously health and safety based, was that leisure would come back first, because I've always said this, and I've said this for literally 2 years now. The American tenets of life, liberty, pursuit of justice, and the pursuit of leisure vacations is really one of the pillars of American culture. And you talk to people, in this country, right to left, east to west, and certainly in the middle, it's like, we're going on vacation. I don't give a shit. Yep. Maybe we're going to go stay at the Fairfield Inn or the Holiday Inn rather than going to the Ritz, but we're going on vacation. We're getting in that car.
Or you're saying we're gonna splurge and go on vacation.
That's right.
And if you think of your 5 favorite moments in your life, if you have children, it's probably their birth or if they got married. But typically in the top 5 is a vacation. It is the moment that you have a picture of your kid on the beach. I mean, there's a picture of my daughters, my twins, when they were maybe 6 months old, down at the Atlantis on the beach. And that picture is ingrained in my brain as one of the happiest moments of my life. So you're 100% right. Yeah, I agree with you.
So
I want to ask you this question again. Last week, we were seeing what I think is propaganda. Every year, AAA puts out gas prices are rising, and they do this fear mongering. Americans aren't going to vacation like they did. But if you're concerned about the price of a tank of gas, chances are you're probably not vacationing anyway. And I don't think it has that much of an effect to it. You might cut out a meal or something like that, but
So,
how do you see the gas thing?
So I see that actually I agree with the first part, not the second part, meaning I agree with that the price of gas is not going to indicate or dictate whether people go on vacations or not, because even to the family, and not to be, and to be very sensitive to everyone, even to the family that has a household income that's below what we may think is somewhat normal, right? And where $25 or $30 for a tank of gas, another $100 a month is very impactful. And there is a significant portion of our population where $100 a month is impactful, right? Especially paying for the same thing and not really getting anything more for it. I still think they're going to go on vacation. So while I do think it's impactful to some people, and I do think that those people go on vacation, again, maybe they're driving to the shore, they're driving a couple hundred miles to, an Ocean City, Maryland, or an Alabama shores, or whatever it may be, right? The Gulf Shores, right? Whatever it may be, for what we would consider to be a relatively inexpensive vacation, they're still going to go. It is impacting them, though. So I do think it's impactful, but I don't think it's going to affect, and I don't believe that it will affect travel one iota, quite frankly. Because I think that people just are so desirous to get the hell out and go do something.
I have a friend of mine that I've known for 30 years, and they made a decision to go on vacation, but they actually changed the brand so they can lower their expense at night to make up for the gas they're spending.
That's right.
So that $100 extra they're going to pay in gas round trip, they just reduced the level of hotel they were staying at.
Or you decide, instead of going to the sit down restaurant, you get some fast casual or something.
Or by the way, you make sure you get a hotel with an efficiency kitchen, and you're like, hey, we're going to the beach, but we're going to make pasta for dinner, in the room. And we're going to have breakfast in the room because we're going to go to the Publix or to the Wegmans, or we're going to buy a gallon of milk and a couple of things of cereal and some eggs to make in our room. So now we're spending $12 for the entire family for breakfast, as opposed to spending $12 a person for times 5, right? I think you'll see that, but I think they'll stay in the hotel. I think they'll splurge and push to stay in the hotel with the pool near the water, or maybe we'll stay across the street from the water instead of on the water, right?
And next time you come back, I want to talk about, this is the biggest issue in our industry, is you go on that vacation, you spend the money, you barely can afford to go on vacation, or you can afford it either way, and you're not getting the level of service. You're not getting the standard.
Someone treats you like shit. Exactly.
Or just a friend of mine who owns his family owns a bunch of coffee places in my neighborhood, and he went and he spent $1,200 down in South Beach for 3 nights per night, and he goes, "Is it normal that they don't clean the room?" It's like communication to that person would have been helpful. So that's a bigger thing. Because
we got another hour on that one, Anthony.
Yeah, because it's going to start affecting lending. It's going to start affecting building a hotel if you can't support it.
But not only that, you know what? To me, it's a little bit of you're taking advantage of the moment, right? That $1,200 a night hotel, quite frankly, 2 years ago, was probably a $500-600 a night hotel.
Right.
In other words, it was probably a nice hotel. But
Right.
if you think you're going to get $1,200, and then your buddy, who by the way obviously can afford it, and then he's going to come back next year, he's going to be like, "Go blank yourself. There's no chance I'm staying at your hotel. You didn't treat me well. You didn't treat me like I was somebody important. Not important, but you know what I mean. But a real."
Well, you know what? It was even worse than that, because he's not a big traveler, and their family's working really, really hard, and they're starting to make money, and it was almost like, "Am I doing this wrong? Like, did I do something wrong? Was I supposed to push a button to get housekeeping?" Like, he wasn't mad. He was more like, "Okay, it was a nice hotel. People
say this all the time.
But like, did I do something wrong?"
I say this all the time. Hospitality is about expectations. If you stay at a limited service economy hotel, all you expect is a clean room, a door, and a bathroom that works. If you stay at a 5-star hotel, Four Seasons, Ritz-Carlton, St. Regis, Shangri-La, whatever it may be, you expect someone to know your name when you walk through the door, open that door for you, take you to your room, and explain to you how every button in that room works, right? And it's not about one's better or worse. It's about expectations, and expectations are driven primarily by pricing and somewhat by branding, right? And so to your point, someone's paying $1,200 a night, that person needs to be treated like a king. I don't care if that person can be replaced today, because I'll tell you what, in 2-3 years from now, that person will not be as easily replaced. And you'll look back and say, "I should have spent more time with them."
What I expect is my dessert to come on a frame with my name on it. The Intercontinental in Boston is treating me well. Last night I had dinner. I don't usually have room service in the room. I had dinner in the room. It was here in 20 minutes.
Wow.
This morning I had breakfast in the room. It was here in 16 minutes. Everything was hot. The people were nice. They were very friendly. The room is spotless. The place is great. The person that
somebody's getting a free room. Go ahead. The
person checked me in. brought me to the elevator, showed me exactly where the elevator was. It wasn't because I'm here on a business trip or because I whatever. It's because that's how they are. I was watching the way they treated everybody. It was normal. You can't fake that, especially with guys like us. You can't fake being nice to me, but the hotel's falling apart other places.
I fake it all the time, Anthony.
Well, that's different, my friend. All right, take us out, Glenn.
Hold on. I do want to mention Grant is disagreeing with us, and I'd like to get all opinions on here. I challenge the comment on gas not making a difference. As one who doesn't have a job today with several friends in the same boat, it does make a big difference. Yes, right. You're absolutely correct, but we were talking to people that were employed, and whether
again, everything's a generality. Of course, there's people out there that are affected by it dramatically, but overall, again, people will generally speaking, folks will primarily stretch. Generally stretch to get to that vacation. And again, maybe it's scaled back in some ways. But
yeah, and listen, we've all been there, right? We're not taking away that it is very difficult in this economy to go on vacation. So let's put that to bed, because that is not what we're saying. We all understand when things are pinched.
Yep.
So if there was no disrespect intended, and Daniel, our frequent visitor to our show, is now giving us pointers on the guests we should have. So he's telling us that we should have Evan back, and Daniel says it, so we have to have you back.
Yeah, Evan, you've earned a chance for a good shameless plug. How do we learn about you and LW Hospitality Advisors?
Sure. www.lwhospitalityadvisors.com. That's our website, or just Google LWHA, LW Hospitality Advisors. Google my name, Google my partner's names. We'd love to speak to you. I'm going to give you a little bit of a little more of a shameless plug here, but also a little inside secret. If you call us and you want to talk about hospitality, we will spend time with you. If we like you, we will spend time with you. Obviously, at some point that gets cut off, but don't hesitate if you say, hey, we're not going to be clients, or hey, they're not going to listen to us or talk to us. Don't worry about it. We will talk to you. We're always happy to talk hospitality, help our friends in the industry, help folks that want to get into the industry. And frankly, truly, it's our pleasure and our passion. So thank you.
And unfortunately, Evan said that applies to everybody except for me for some reason. But
it has to do with your face, Glenn. That's really why. But Anthony, call anytime. But anyway, I want to really, truly thank both of you for the opportunity. This was a heck of a lot of fun. And I really appreciate the opportunity.
And let's have lunch soon. I want to talk to you about a couple things. So let's have lunch the next couple of weeks.
Hey, maybe invite me too. I'd love to hang out with you guys.
No, that's not going to happen. But
damn it. I keep trying. Maybe one day.
And we have to say a shout out to Peter Crissetti, who's kind of put me and Evan together. And Peter, if you don't know who Peter is, look him up. He's a rock star. We just work for him.
All right. Thank you, Evan. We appreciate you. We'll get you back soon, and I'll see you on the road.
Thank you, guys.
Take care. All right. Let's wrap this thing up since we're running so late. Make sure you download the audio version. And if you're downloading the audio version already, why not check out our video version? You can find us on YouTube, mine and Anthony's LinkedIn pages, our Facebook pages, et cetera, as well as novacancynews.com. And if you're not, listen to us on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, all those kind of good things. Listen when you're walking the dog. Watch while you're sitting at your desk eating lunch. Anthony, any final words?
Thank God for Evan, because I'll just say in the 600 episodes that we've done, or I've done 300 or 400 of them, there's been 2 or 3 people that have been less than stellar, and it's been very, very challenging for us to go through those shows. But when you have someone like Evan on it, it makes up for it.
Yeah, that's for sure. All right, let's get out of here, everybody. Remember, you've got one life, so blaze on and
be kind to yourself.
I'll see you tomorrow. Anthony, I think you've got a speaking gig, so you won't be here tomorrow, right?
Yeah, I may make it. I think my speaking engagement's going to be over by then, so I'll text you and let you know.
All right, hopefully we'll see all of you tomorrow. Thanks so much. We'll be back next time.